What's going on YouTube? Today I bring you my number 18th power ranked team for the 2021 NFL season. And as you saw by the title, that is the Denver Broncos. I know this is going to be a team that people automatically, why are they so high? And I will just put out there now. I am a Broncos fan. Well, I'm going to admit it. Yeah, there's probably a little bias. If you're not biased towards your team, you're not a fan. Simple as that. But I'm going to go into this being as absolutely unbiased as possible, and everything I say here, even if it sounds stupid, because I know there's going to be some stuff I say in this video that will sound stupid, I completely believe and have stuff to back it up. So without further ado, let's go into it. Starting off with the receiving room. This is a very good receiving room, one of the best in the league. When he's healthy, Courtland Sutton is a top 15 receiver, very talented jump ball guy, great to have as number one. Jerry Jeudy is a guy that got a lot of hate in his first season for the drops and stuff that he had. He went 11 weeks without a drop, and literally over, I think if it wasn't over, it was 50% of his drops came from one game. Stop overreacting. Amari Cooper had an insane drop issue his first year. He cleaned that up. It's just an issue that some rookie receivers deal with. Do not forget that he had Drew Lock throwing to him. He actually had one of the highest uncatchable catch ratings in the NFL. Basically, balls that you could catch, but it's pretty impossible to. Had one of the highest ratings of the last decade and the highest of last season. So you've got to remember who's throwing to him. Either way, Jerry Jeudy is a future superstar, and he's especially fantastic to have as your number two right now. He's already one of the better route runners in the NFL. The drops, they don't matter if you have the right quarterback, and they will be cleaned up. At your number three, you got Tim Patrick, who is one of the more underrated players in the NFL. The dude is very solid, especially as a number three. This is a guy that could cut it as a number two and be one of the better number twos in the NFL. This is a guy that honestly on some NFL teams would be their number one. If he was on the Patriots or maybe the Jets even, this guy would probably be their number one receiver. That's how talented Tim Patrick is. So the fact that he's the number three for Denver shows you how good he is. KJ Hamler, great speedy slot receiver. Again, having him as your number four, just a great option. And then the depth behind that is pretty impressive as well. I mean, Seth Williams, a great contested catch guy from, I want to say Auburn, but probably not Auburn. Maybe Auburn. Might be wrong on that. Probably am wrong on that. Tyree Cleveland, a late round pick that holds a bit of upside. Kendall Hinton, a guy that played quarterback for them week 11 against the Saints, week 11 or 13, whatever it was. Deontay Spencer, great kick returner, really speedy guy. Trinity Benson, whatever. Warren Jackson, also another kind of physical, go up and get it guy that they picked up. Buffalo, I believe. I can't remember colleges right now for some reason. But either way, this receiving room is stacked. It's got great talent at the top. They've got a future superstar, potentially two future superstars with Sutton and Jeudy, and great depth beyond that. This is an A right here. This is, I don't think there's anyone here that's special yet, which is why it's not an A+, but this is one of the better receiving rooms in the NFL by far. Getting into the left tackle room, Garrett Bowles had an enormously big explosion last season. He actually graded as one of PFF's best players, not left tackles, not offensive linemen, not offensive player. He graded as one of PFF's best players last season. Definitely earned himself an extension. Working with Mike Munchak definitely helped Garrett Bowles out a ton. As soon as he got that mental side to the game, limited his penalties, he exploded pretty quickly. And that was never an issue about Garrett Bowles' athleticism or his upside. It was always the mentality to the game. And once he got that cleared up, you saw what he could do. So let's hope Garrett Bowles can do that kind of production. Definitely, I'm not going to sit here and say that he will, because, that kind of play is basically just for the elite of the NFL. That's David Bakhtiari, Trent Williams level, almost kind of better. Really hard to replicate that, but if he does, obviously great to have. And then behind him, Cameron Fleming is probably going to be on the right side, but behind him, Calvin Anderson he's a decent guy. He's a guy that has a bit of potential as a backup, but not much else than that. Overall, you had one of the best players in football last season who hopefully can replicate at least something similar with, whatever, backup. It's going to be a B+ for right now. If Garrett Bowles replicates what he did last season, though, obviously going to go up. Then at the left guard room, Dalton Reisner has been a very solid guard for the Broncos since coming into the league. He's really not been much else than that. He's been a solid guy. He is a pretty versatile guy as well. I mean, if you really needed him to, he could switch over to tackle. It's pretty much the story of Dalton Reisner. He, solid guy. Still holds a bit of potential for Denver. Behind him, Austin Schlottman, who played decent at times when he was called up. In fact, there was one game actually in particular where he played really nicely actually. But you have a serviceable enough backup and a serviceable enough, even though they're both solid. Even though I'm calling them serviceable, you have a solid enough guy. It's a solid room. It's going to get a B minus. In the center, this is a little bit less good than the last two rooms. Lloyd Cushenberry was horrendous last year. I could not tell you the exact details of if he's the worst or not, but he was one of the worst offensive linemen in football last year. It was not pretty. I liked him coming out of LSU, and he was just horrific for the Broncos. There's been some talk that he has really improved this offseason, which I'm not going to discount that from literally any player, any second-year player, considering the type of offseason they had in their rookie year last year. That's part of the thing with Drew Lock is for me as well, because last year was basically his rookie season. So, with Cushenberry, he still has potential for sure. But one guy that I did like that they took out of Wisconsin Whitewater, Quinn Miners, the dude that kind of exploded up people's boards there at the Senior Bowl, and then continued to show that the Senior Bowl was not a fluke after performing very well at his pro day. I really like the pick there for Denver. Picking him up in the third round. I think, honestly, he starts as day one over Cushenberry unless Cushenberry has truly shown that much progression in training camp. As of right now, though, you have two young guys who certainly hold a ton of potential, but neither one is really ready right now. So overall, just because there's potential, it's not going to be a D for me, but a C minus still could be a lot better. Then the right guard room. Graham Glasgow played solid enough for the Broncos last year. He's still a top 16 guard in the NFL, or at least top 16 right guard. I don't know if I quite consider him a top 16 guard in general, but regardless, solid enough guy for the Broncos there. And then behind him, Netane Moody, really interesting guy because he's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout college. Stayed healthy for the most part with the Broncos last season. He might have gotten one injury, I think, but it wasn't a big injury or anything. Regardless, Netane Moody is a guy that was a second, third round type talent, but fell all the way to the sixth round for Denver to take him. He was a great player to pick up late round. So if he can become anything special, maybe he's your starter of the future there once Glasgow's contract is up. So Netane Moody, great backup, really nice, solid guy to have behind him. Hopefully he can be something for the Broncos. And then behind those guys, Patrick Morris, who has had a few off the field issues. Even though they were on the field, he's gotten in a few fights and stuff like that. As a player himself, he's just whatever too. I mean, he's much more of a center to me than a right guard anyways. So you have a solid starter, a solid backup with a ton of potential, and whatever is your third, it's going to get it'll be C for me. I do think Glasgow's obviously better than Miners or Cushenberry. Moody, still holds a ton of potential. We just really haven't seen anything yet, obviously. For right now, it's just going to be right in the middle for a C, but could definitely improve. And then on the right tackle room, not really anyone to talk about behind Bobby Massey. Massey or Massey, let me know down below. But Bobby Massey, though, he when he was healthy, he was actually really solid for the Bears. You have to take in the fact that he has dealt with a lot of his health issues into account. And even when he's healthy, again, he's a solid guy. He's not anything special, of course. I think with all that combined, it's going to be a C minus just because you're banking on him staying healthy, and even if he does, he's a solid guy, which would move it up to a C or C plus, whatever. But for right now, it's going to be a C minus as well. Overall, this offensive line, very young, got a lot of potential. Some great pieces along it with Garrett Bowles and Dalton Reisner. It definitely is much worse lines in the league. Definitely also has much better lines in the league. But Garrett Bowles definitely helps as well. You probably have your franchise left tackle there. Definitely, another reason, and we'll talk about him again more later, but definitely another reason why Drew Lock should not fail this year. And then the tight end room. Noah Fant, one of the brightest young tight ends in the game. Once again, similar to Jerry Jeudy, I think you've got to take into account the quarterback that he had last year, the fact that he did show some really nice things. I feel like Noah Fant is, I mean, if Drew Lock plays well this year, it's a breakout year for him as well as Jeudy. So Noah Fant, great explosive guy, really speedy tight end. And then behind him, another really speedy tight end with Albert Okwuegbunam. We'll call him Albert O for the rest of the video from now on. If we talk about him again. Albert O, though, very speedy receiver as well. He's got that chemistry with Drew Lock, both coming out of Missouri. I like that pickup for the Broncos. He got hurt last year, but, he looks to bounce back. And with Noah Fant and Albert O, you honestly have the best speedy tight end duo in the NFL. That is a very fast tight end room right there. And both having a nice bit of upside as well. Austin Fort, whatever. The other guy I want to talk about here is Sean Bayer out of Iowa. He's a guy that has some nice physical traits. I think he probably makes it onto the team as the tight end number 3, just because Fort's pretty weak and no idea who Eric Stobert is. But Sean Bayer is a guy to watch out for as well. I don't think he'll break out or anything. I've seen a few people say, compare him, not in terms of talent, of course, but George Kittle was an Iowa tight end that got picked late, although this guy was undrafted. That took a few years to break out and stuff. I don't think he's going to be George Kittle, but especially considering they already have 2 really solid tight ends on the roster. But just a guy to watch out for, though. So overall, this tight end room, really young, for sure, very young, very fast, ton of upside as well. This is it's going to be a B- for right now. Can be a lot better, especially if Fant does break out. This is, again, very young, very fast room, though. And now we move on to the man himself, Drew Lock. Drew Lock, and this is what I said earlier when I knew people were going to hate on me for a stupid opinion and stuff. I've said this well before, and I've gotten hate for it. I believe in Drew Lock. I'm sorry, I think there is more than enough there for me to be able to believe in Drew Lock and not be berated for it. I totally understand if you don't think he's the guy. I understand he has played horrible at times. There's no denying that. But I definitely think there is enough there and enough reasons to believe that Drew Lock could definitely break out this year. And I think for the people that say he's just this completely horrible quarterback, no chance, he's done, I think that's kind of weird considering he's played 1 full season, and that wasn't even a full season. He missed 3 games. I don't get this mindset of 1 year he didn't play well, let's move on already. In the year before, where he had 5 games, he played incredible in those 4 games. Obviously, the Chiefs was a tough task, but he played incredible in those 4 games in his first year. If you want me to list off reasons why Drew Lock, is going to improve this year, well, let's start listing them off, I guess. First off, no COVID season, so he's not going to have players or himself being taken out for COVID, more than likely. He's getting Cortland Sutton back. You have Jerry Jeudy, who's looking to break out this year. You have Noah Fant, who's looking to break out this year. Offensive line improved with Bobby Massey. You picked up Javonte Williams to make the running back room better. Your defense is probably top 5 in the league. This is the first ever season where Drew Lock is keeping the same playbook and same scheme 2 years in a row. That includes not only his professional career, but his college career. Okay. All that combined, the Broncos, I think, were the 2nd most injured team in football last year. Drew Lock being one of those injured players. Pat Shurmur is a really nice quarterback developer, actually. I think there's plenty of reasons as to why Drew Lock. I think last of all, the biggest reason is that he literally cannot get worse. He was bad last season. I understand that. He literally cannot get worse from what he showed last season. Not to mention the fact that he has John Elway and Peyton Manning mentoring him. And he's literally with Josh Allen's quarterback coach. And now I'm not saying he's going to be the next Josh Allen, but what year did Josh Allen break out? His 3rd year. I think there's more than enough here for me at least to be able to, say that I think I believe in Drew Lock. Again, I understand if you don't, but I think the idea that if you do believe in Drew Lock, you're stupid, I think that's ridiculous because I see more than enough reason to believe in him. You put all that combined, I truly do think there is a good chance that Drew Lock could break out this year. It is not guaranteed by any means, but there, like I just said, like I've been repeating, there's more than enough reasons. Behind him, Teddy Bridgewater, you brought in a nice veteran backup, to give him hopefully that push that he needs. And if Drew Lock can't step up by some stretch of the imagination, because you literally have to be one of the worst quarterbacks ever if you cannot succeed with this cast around you, the weapons that he has on this team, the offensive line he has, there is not a single excuse for Drew Lock this year unless everyone gets hurt again. There's just not a single excuse. So Teddy Bridgewater being behind him, I think, is a solid guy behind him. He's obviously not like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but before he got hurt with the Saints, before he got hurt with the Panthers last season, he actually was really solid in some games, even back with the Saints and stuff. So I think he's a serviceable enough guy to where you have two guys that, one, I do believe will break out, and one that is definitely serviceable at the very least if Locke does not break out. Overall, I think that's a C room. I mean, because I know it's obviously appears as one of the worst rooms in the NFL, and it is, but I think there's a legit chance Locke breaks out, and I think Bridgewater is being pretty underrated by most people. Then the running back room. Running back room, very solid here for the Broncos as well. This offense as a whole is so set. It's just the quarterback position. There's been a lot of those teams, the Dolphins, a few others where they're just that quarterback away. And I feel like there's really not, besides one other team we'll get to in a future video, there's not any other team that suffers as much from the lack of a quarterback, because this team is so freaking set, and the running back room is just another part to that. Melvin Gordon, is definitely slowing down, seems to be hitting his, the end of his career, but still a very solid running back, and, does still get yards after the play and stuff. And then what they did was they went out and picked up Javonte Williams, who, in my opinion, is basically the next Nick Chubb. I don't know if he'll be as good as Nick Chubb, but he will be somewhere similar in skill level. That is a great guy to have as your future running back, obviously. And then behind those guys, you've got guys like Levante Bellamy, who I liked coming out of college, Royce Freeman, who's a very, very solid power back to have as your number 3 or 4, and then Mike Boone, who is kind of one of those breakout candidates, a special teamer coming from the Vikings. Obviously, George Payton liked him because he, came from the Vikings as well. Very solid special teams player, which is something the Broncos could use. All in all, this running back room, very good, very solid, lots of bright young upside. That's going to be a B for me. But yeah, all in all, offense, so good. These weapons are amazing. The offensive line is definitely, at the very least, solid, because who knows, maybe one of these guys breaks out or Glasgow plays great. But the big X factor at the end of the day is Drew Lock. And like I just explained, I think there's more than enough reason to think Lock could definitely break out this year. But let's move on to the defense now. And starting off with the first defensive end, Shelby Harris to me is the definition of solid. He is solid at literally everything. He's not great at anything. He's not bad at anything. He's one of the best pass defending defensive linemen in the NFL. I think he's got to be leading defensive linemen in knockdown passes. I mean, that's like that guy's forte. Behind him, you don't really have anyone. You picked up Marquise Spencer, but he's kind of whatever. So, yeah, Shelby Harris, though, very, very solid guy. Glad they got him back. He is a great player to have. Also a pretty solid run defender. So, Shelby Harris, not much else behind him, but he does make up a good enough guy. So, that is going to be a B-. Defensive tackle. Mike Purcell is one of the more underrated players in the NFL. I don't think he's a case like Tim Patrick where he's like this great player that everyone underrates, but he is a very solid guy, and I don't think he gets really any recognition for that. But he is solid enough. He's not really your typical defensive tackle. He's a bit undersized. But behind him, you have Shamar Stephen, who they picked up from Minnesota. Another guy that George Payton likes as well, obviously just because of the Vikings. But does he make the roster? Because you got McTelvin Agim that you picked up out of Arkansas last year. And I was never a big fan of this guy, but a lot of people are, and I think the Broncos are as well. Big fans of McTelvin Agim. Do they plan for him to be their future defensive tackle? I don't know. But he's a fine enough young player to have behind him. So overall, this defensive tackle room, it's really just kind of meh. But I think, the fact that you not really got anyone there that I would consider even close to good. Purcell is solid, but he's still not that great. It's gonna be a C- for me. And then you have the other defensive end room. Draymond Jones was one of my favorite picks back in the 2019 or 2018 drafts with the Broncos. I'm a big fan of Ohio State defensive linemen, and I always like this guy. I think he's got a lot of potential. Yet again, another one of the breakout candidates on this Broncos roster. That's like the fourth one so far. Draymond Jones, breakout candidate, really like what he shows. No one behind him, but he is a breakout candidate, showing some really nice things. I think he had 6.5 sacks last year, so I'm expecting a breakout year from him. Decent guy to have across right now, but with the upside and stuff, it's enough to be a D plus right now. Again, Jones is definitely not anyone solid yet, and there's literally no one behind him, so it's gonna be a D plus right now. Right outside linebacker, Bradley Chubb, one of the brightest young pass rushers in the game. Enough said there. I mean, he's shown some great things. First Pro Bowl last year. He looks to be a bright star for the Broncos moving forward. Malik Reed behind him is actually one of the best backup outside linebackers in the league. So he's obviously great to have there. Andre Mintz was a guy they picked up. Undrafted free agent. He's whatever. It holds a bit of upside. But overall, this is a very solid pass rushing room. You have one of the best backups and one of the best young, bright guys of the future who did play very good last year. So overall, this is going to be an A- for right now. Middle linebacker, AJ Johnson starting for you. Not a very good pass coverage guy, but it is a very good run defending physical threat. And then across from him, Josie Jewell, who is somewhat of a decent pass coverage guy, pretty athletic and quick. So I think together they make up a pretty nice duo there. Behind them, Josh Watson's whatever, but Baron Browning I really liked as a pickup out of Ohio State. I think he fits this Broncos scheme pretty well. And, getting him and Josie Jewell as your future there makes up a pretty nice athletic duo. And then Justin Strnad is a guy out of Wake Forest that I really love the upside on. He dealt with some injury issues last year, but he's a guy that I think holds a ton of potential. So I really like him as well here. Overall, inside linebacker room, it's okay. You've not really got anyone here good. AJ Johnson's solid enough. You've got some nice young depth though, so it's gonna be a C. It's very meh to me. Left outside linebacker, Von Miller, has been one of the most dominant players of the last decade. Now, obviously, it is pretty concerning with, he had his worst year of his career, and then next season tore his ACL. You hope he can come back and be, close to his old self. I definitely do not predict him to come back and have 12, 13 sacks. I think what's best case scenario for Miller, you get 8 or 9 sacks out of him. But even then, you're probably not looking at that. He is still one of the best, probably run defenders in the NFL, but he's not going to give you that same kind of elite pass rush. So because of that, kind of lowers the value. Derek Tuska, a nice young guy that I do like the potential on. And then Jonathan Cooper, also kind of like that pick. He is a nice fit out of LSU. I believe it was LSU. So, yeah, he's a nice young player. But overall, the room, it's, you're still going to get – he's still one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, obviously. He's not anywhere close to Khalil Mack, TJ Watt, or anything, but he is still, up there in that talent pool. So, that alone, it's going to keep the grade up. I think with the backups behind him, I think it's enough to earn you a B for right now. And then the cornerback room. Wow, here's where we get into stuff. Cornerback room. This is an incredible corner room. I'm honestly going to say that this is the best secondary in the NFL. There's some teams that can challenge it, but I'm going to give it to the Broncos. I mean, starting off with cornerback, you picked up Kyle Fuller, who's probably going to be your number one coming in, making his return with Vic Fangio. Let's not forget that the best years of his career were with Vic Fangio, and Kyle Fuller's kind of been getting slowly better anyways since he left. Kyle Fuller could enjoy a really nice bounce-back year this year. So he is great to have there, obviously. Your number 2 is probably going to be Pat Surtain, who is one of the most talented corners we've seen of the past 10 years, probably since a Patrick Peterson or Jalen Ramsey. Just such an incredible talent. He fits this Broncos scheme so perfectly, and you add on the fact that the Broncos still have a pretty good pass rush as well. Pat Surtain and Kyle Fuller make a very, very scary duo here. And Pat Surtain's honestly one of those corners where I say it all the time, corners, they're just not going to play well for you right away. Surtain could be a case where he does actually play well out of the gate. We'll have to see, but, still makes up a very, very nice duo there. And then your slot. Your slot's going to be Callahan because Callahan is the best slot corner in football. In fact, he actually played as an outside corner when he was healthy last year, and he still actually was one of the best corners in football. He had one of the highest PFF grades in the entire league. Like, when he was on the field, he was fantastic. So now that you have him healthy, back in his natural role with a ton of help, once again, another great piece to add here. I mean, you have potentially one of the best starting duo corners in the NFL, and then maybe the best slot corner in the NFL. And we haven't even talked about the depth beyond that. I mean, Ronald Darby, I was not a big fan of the signing, but still, having him as your number 4, he's like easily the best number 4 corner in the NFL. And if you really need, he can start for you, no problem. Kerry Vincent, a very solid young corner out of LSU to add. Asang Basi, a really nice solid young corner out of Wake Forest to add. Michael Ojemudia played very, very well for being a 3rd round pick rookie thrown into the starting job. So now that he is also going to be like your 5 or 6 or something. And then behind those guys, you have Duke Dawson, who has shown some nice things. Nate Hairston, who showed flashes last year enough to maybe at least see if you keep him on the roster. This is A+. Like, I don't even have to think about this. This is the best corner room in the NFL. Like, this is just such an insane corner room. I say this a lot, but I don't think that the Pat Surtain pick was actually that bad looking back on it, because he is going to be a fantastic corner for the Broncos. Again, just such a great scheme fit. He's, not alone on this defense, and great pass rush. I mean, I feel like Justin Fields is going to be a bit of a disappointment in Chicago, and so I don't think this is going to be a case where we look back and say, why did they take Surtain over Fields? I think it was a right pick. And to add that all up together, this is a fantastic corner room. It is going to get an A+. And then the free safety room, Justin Simmons, in my opinion, is the best safety in football. The dude does a tremendous job of covering basically everything deeper than 20 yards for the Broncos, but also does a fantastic job at getting in on the run game, covering his down zones when he is in them. And again, once again, now you add the fact that the Broncos just went from one of the worst corner rooms to, in my opinion, the best corner room. Now that he's going to have a much more limited role, and he literally just has to worry about 1 or 2 assignments, when before he was worrying about like every assignment, I think Justin Simmons is going to cement himself as the best safety in football next year. That's just my opinion. It's a prediction, but I think that's what happens. All that help, I think Justin Simmons is going to have his best year yet. And then behind him, Caden Stearns was a nice pickup out of Texas. He's a fine enough guy. I think I might like him a bit better if they move him to corner, but I think they've got enough of those already. And then Trey Marshall is a whatever guy. He's probably going to get cut, to be honest. But Justin Simmons, best safety in the game, in my opinion. I think he's only going to get better next year. And then Caden Stearns, a solid young guy. That's a very good room. That's going to be an A+ here. Another A+. Because, I mean, if you have the best safety in football and then a really solid, young guy behind him, solid in terms of, a rookie backup, it's got to be an A+, especially, again, since I think Simmons is going to have a fantastic year next year. And then Kareem Jackson, they were able to bring him back on a 1-year deal. That's fantastic for them. You keep a nice veteran dude who still does his job pretty well, nice hard-hitting guy. And again, just now that you're limiting his role and stuff because this corner room is so good, it just, once again, I think it ups his value. PJ Locke, whatever behind him, but Jamar Johnson was one of my favorite safeties of this last class. If I remember correctly, he was actually he was 3, 4, or 5 actually in my class. So getting him in the 5th round was just such a heck of a steal. I'm a big fan of Jamar Johnson. I think he is their strong safety of the future. So you have your guy for right now. You have your guy of the future, in my opinion. 2 very solid guys. That's going to be a B for me right now. Maybe even a B+, because again, this defense is just so good. But yeah, like I said, you have this pass rush that is a very good pass rush. Even if Von Miller isn't quite the same, it is still a very solid pass rush. Linebacking room, nice and athletic, could be better, but it obviously helps again from the pass rush. And then the secondary, it's the best secondary in football. Like, you have the best corner room in the NFL, probably the best safety duo in the NFL, and a ton of young, great depth beyond that. This secondary is absolutely insane. And then I haven't even talked about the coaches yet, but you have Vic Fangio as your coach. So once again, Drew Lock is definitely the X factor because this roster is stacked. And then moving on to special teams, Sam Martin, the best punter they've had since probably Riley Dixon or whatever. He's a fine enough punter. Brandon McManus, one of the better kickers in the NFL. Big leg. it has a few shank kicks, but for the most part, it gets it done. And then your kick returner, they have Deontay Spencer here who very well could, but I feel like KJ Hamler's probably going to be returning your kicks, just being that he's your number 4 and stuff. But overall, like, this team, like, dude, it's just stacked. I mean, you've got such a fantastic list of weapons. You've got a very solid offensive line. You've got a really solid pass rush, not to mention the best secondary in football. Drew Lock is the X factor. Drew Lock just needs to be like a top 20 quarterback, and this team can legitimately win a Super Bowl. I don't care if you think that sounds stupid. It's just, that's what it is. This roster, besides maybe a couple other rosters, is probably the most talented roster in the NFL. And if you took away the quarterback position, I think they could very well be the best roster in the NFL. So we're going to take a look at their schedule and culture now. But yeah, this is a stacked roster. And taking a look at their schedule here, once again, another thing that actually really benefits the Broncos in this situation is the fact that they have one of the easier schedules in the NFL. The Giants is going to be, a tough game, obviously. The only games I would really consider, quote, easy games here are probably like the Jaguars, the Raiders, Eagles, Lions, maybe the Bengals. But there are a lot of also that are, tough games, but they're toss-ups. I mean, the Giants, Jets, Steelers, Washington, the Cowboys, the Chargers, even the Chiefs could potentially be a toss-up game. Because, once again, this roster it's just so incredibly talented. Moving on to, like, the coaching and the culture, Vic Fangio, I know a lot of people think he should be fired and stuff, but I think he's what they need, to be honest. He's the guy that, goes in and he just gets the job done. He is a really, really good defensive coach, obviously. That's another reason why that defense is going to be so scary, because Vic Fangio is just such a brilliant defensive mind. The culture I like as well. Denver has this really nice culture of just, we're going in to win. A lot of their players believe in Drew Lock, and I think, obviously you're not going to be trashing on your quarterback, but it's still at least nice to be like, it doesn't feel like fake optimism to me. It feels like they genuinely believe in Drew Lock, and we haven't even talked about the fact that this team may get Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna say it now. Like, if Denver gets Aaron Rodgers, it's done. You take this kind of a roster and put potentially the best quarterback in the NFL on it. I mean, the Buccaneers and Chiefs can put up competition for sure, but I mean, come on. At that point, you're giving Aaron Rodgers the best defense he's ever had, the best receiving weapons he's ever had. You're giving him a true opportunity to win. Like, I legitimately think if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Broncos this year, he could very well repeat MVPs. Because, like, it's insane. That's, of course, if they get Aaron Rodgers, or, Deshaun Watson, too, if they do get Deshaun Watson. I just think it's over for everyone, because they're a quarterback away. This Broncos team is legitimately a quarterback away. There is not a single weakness on the roster except for quarterback, and even that, I don't think it's a weakness right now, because I believe that if Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson isn't there, that Drew Lock will, at the very worst, progress enough to make this team at least close to a playoff team. I really do feel like, at the very worst, as long as, like, this team stays injured and everything, at the very worst, this team is right on that playoff, right on the outside of the playoffs. And I think Drew Lock could definitely progress enough to where they actually do make the playoffs. But once again, if they get Aaron Rodgers, they get Deshaun Watson, it's over. But that is my 2021 analysis for the Denver Broncos. Let me know what you guys thought down below in the comments. Yeah, I might be a little biased here, but what I say about this being such a talented roster, and if they had Aaron Rodgers, it's over, it's true. Sorry, not sorry. But, if you guys did like the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.